Hey beer fans, this is Steve Jiguer, and this is a BeerNative first where I'm going to use some beer to make an awesome recipe. And we're going to use one of the ones from the new Lidl range that I picked up a ton. On Thursday I'll do another review, probably later today, of one that I think is going to be amazing. But let's take a look at what it is I'm making. Let me flip the camera around. So we're making pulled pork. So I've got 3 pork loins. I got some chilies. These are chilies grown in my garden, back outside. Got a bunch of tomatoes. I've got a little bit of stock, and what's in there is actually this from the garden again. Pureed, add a bit of cider vinegar into it. I can put the recipe below, and it becomes what looks like this horrendous dog vomit, but it's delicious. Trust me, it's like a sort of green tomato chutney. If you're wondering how to turn the green tomatoes into something edible, like all these, you can eat the red ones, but the green ones, you're supposed to kind of cook them first. So what I typically do, and I'll show you here, is I lay them all in a pan, like I'm doing now, and I grill them, and then flip them over. There's some real ugly one there. And this cooks them all through really quickly and really soft, like something if it was red, you might have that with your breakfast. And I also do a few green peppers for a little bit of spice, because the roast peppers are really nice as well. And then that's not enough liquid, so basically to make it work, I dig around, and we're going to be having some small, I can hold on to it, some Small Giant from Stewart Brewing. You will be the critical ingredient to make this good. It doesn't have to be super boozy. I like a high IBU when I'm making pulled pork, because it sinks in and it makes it taste super nummy. So we're going to pile all of these ingredients in there. I'm going to save a little sip so I can tell you what I think of the beer straight up. Yeah, just after this. So you can see I've cut up the pork into sort of long, thin strips. You don't want to cut it into little pieces, because then you lose all that really nice kind of stringiness that pulled pork has. I realize it doesn't look like much, but it's hot. Okay, I'm gonna start mixing it all together. I generally, when I'm making things, try to avoid using like straight up salt. Like if I can avoid it, I'm like what I'm doing here, I've got a little bit of vegetable stock, and that's salty as hell, right? And vegetable stock's like a secret ingredient if you're making like anything, rice, whatever. Like, throw a little bit of this in there, people will think you're a freaking genius. So this is my salt, essentially. So I dump that in. Has a little bit of essential extra moisture in addition to the beer as well. I lost some good bits there. And another like kind of instant, like this is basically a bottle of salt, right? Soy sauce. I'm gonna add a little bit of that because even though it's crazy salty, it doesn't, I'm only gonna add like maybe 1 finger of it, but it makes a difference. Okay, now for the 2 main ingredients. I'm gonna get the meat, gonna mix it all in with the somewhat undiluted green tomato. By the way, there's a bit of apple in there. Check the recipe down there. So there's apple gives it a bit of sweetness, but I'm going to add something for super special sweetness in a moment. I'm going to get it all covered. I'm going to throw the beer on top, save it a little bit for the chef, and then I'll show you what I'm using to sweeten it up. Again, I'm not using straight up sugar. Sugar is kind of bad for you, but there are certain types of sugars you can use that have a lower glycemic index, one of which is my favorite. Here we go, boys. Everybody out of the boat. There it is. Let's get our wooden spoon. Another good reason for cutting into longer, slimmer chunks is that they kind of unite a lot better, almost like, in a cereal box, all the cereal settles. Because they're longer and narrower, they sit flatter in the slow cooker, and you get less liquid marinade for the amount of meat you've actually trying to turn into pulled pork. It's pretty well covered now, isn't it? Now we're going to add our favorite A little bit of Stewart's Small Giant American Pale Ale. And you want it all covered. And this is perfect. You just keep going until you got it about, you don't want to overdo it. It'll settle in. That's about right. And I got about that much left in the can for me to just have a little special something for the artiste. So I'm going to get that all under the liquid, flatten it all out. And I'm going to wait probably, we're going to have to fast forward like 2 hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours on high. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to get 2 forks, and we'll see it shortly. I'm going to pull the name is called pulled pork. I'm going to pull it all apart, and you'll see it come apart as little strands and look really delicious. And then I'll have to leave it again for another hour so that the flavor, the marinade, the beer, the soy, the salt, the sweetness all sinks in. You ready? I've been saying secret ingredient a lot. Everything's a secret. Ooh, not anymore though, because I'm telling you about it on YouTube. Behold, the Grail! Ontario, which is where I'm from, maple syrup. And I gotta get this stuff special because this is, like you can see, it's all handmade. This one was made on St. Joseph's Island in Ontario, right near my hometown. My father brought it to me when I was visiting Canada last year because he knows I have a slight addiction to maple. But the sweetness in this is amazing. You need about a cup, and it makes a huge difference. Think like maple pork. Who doesn't like maple bacon? And this is the best maple. This is not a waste of high quality maple. This is worth it. So let's chuck it. I only have a little bit left too, so I'm going to start getting the jitters. Let's throw it in. All right. Pretty free-form guy. It's probably, is that the rest of it? Oh, that's tragic, but it's worth it. I might swell this out just to get the absolute best out of it. Okay, so we're going to give that a stir. Get the maple in there everywhere. And we are going to be eating some killer pork. But first, making beer food wouldn't be the same without the leftover bit of the left-handed giant. Wrong brewery, sorry. Stewart Brewing's Small Giant. So there it is in the glass. Nicely lit up. Really pale. It says it's American Pale Ale, but you never really know what you're going to get when I guess people who don't live in America say American. They're usually dealing with something a bit cliche, but it claims to be pretty citrusy, but it's coming across as a bit lager, almost yeasty. That's okay, I don't mind that. That would be very American, so I'll give them that. On the can, I already saw this. They're claiming, again, to be big hop flavor profile, fragrant citrus and pine. I am getting a bit of pininess, but let's call it a bit of Americanness. Stewart Brewing is in Edinburgh. Highly recommend you going there just for tourism, whiskey, and of course beer. So give it a try. Wow, big pine. This is gonna be great. I didn't taste it before adding it to the pulled pork. I probably should have tried it first, but its claimed profile, none of the citrusiness sinks into the beer. Like, you don't catch that at all. But the booziness and the maltiness and the pininess, that's what you're after, and this is a total jackpot. This is really nice. I think it's a lot lighter on citrus than they're claiming, but I kind of don't care. This is exactly what I was after. It's 4.4, and considering it's because I only realized the clocks went back last night, I'm having part of a beer at like 10:30 in the morning, which is questionable. But yeah, it's actually pretty nice. I'm not going to go through the whole rating thing, but I love the art in the can. I really like Stewart Brewing. This can art looks very different from their typical can art. They had a consistency in their core range, and this one's kind of deviated, which makes me like it more. I love the color. I love the taste. Is it a 10:30 a.m. beer? I'm going with yeah, I guess. I'm probably going to throw it up on Untapped as a 4. I'm just going to skip the normal scoring process because we're trying to be quick. This is about the food today, not necessarily about the beer. Or is it? Both. All right, back to the recipe. All right, it's been 5 hours since I put the pork into the slow cooker on high. It was on high for a bit, but then it got flipped down to low for the probably remaining 4 hours. So I'm going to pop the lid and use the fork to try and pull it apart so it turns into what looks more like pulled pork. Here we go. Whoa. Smells nummy. A little more oily than we would expect. So we can see all the little pork poops in our bowl. So I'm going to try and just see how well they come apart. Oh, there we go. They're just falling apart. That's totally awesome. That's what we want. That's what 5 hours on a slow cooker does. And it doesn't look like stringiness. So if you ever had pulled pork from a restaurant, then it just comes out looking like stringy cheese already, right? But you have to kind of create that by doing this slowly, hence the name pulled pork. So I won't let you sit through watching me do all this. I'll fast forward to the end. There we go. That's a lot better, isn't it? Looking pretty shredded. So I'm probably going to leave this like this. There's a few chunks left, but those will just fall apart now that the surface area of the pork is exposed to the yummy, smelly marinade. And yeah, I'll come back in probably an hour. I'm going to leave the lid off now because it's pretty watery. It'll cook down a little bit, just in case I want to reuse the sauce as kind of a reduction to put on the pork afterwards, which I probably will do. All right. Okay, so it is 6 p.m. and I started making the pulled pork at 10 a.m. So let's just take a quick look because I think it's done. There we go. Yep. It looks pretty perfect. I'll sieve off a lot of this liquid and store that separately. And there'll be 4 components when this is done. Let me just try it. Yeah, you get to see me try it for some. Oh boy. That's a thumbs up. You gotta check that recipe down below. You saw what I added extra. The original recipe was just a green tomato chutney. But because of the contents of it, I thought it would be an amazing component to a marinade that made pulled pork, and I was absolutely correct. And I added a few things which you saw in the video, so I hope you give that a go. Like I said, I'm going to split this up. I'll isolate the sauce, make a reduction out of it, because it's awesome when you drizzle over the eventual pulled pork. So the liquid will be reduced. And I'll take 2/3 of it into individual Tupperwares, and I'll freeze them. And then I'll leave 1/3 of it remaining, because if you saw, I used 3 pork loin. And one of them is a meal, but 3 of them is insane. And what's great about it is that it freezes and defrosts really well. And that means you can have kind of an instant meal. And when you defrost pulled pork, it tastes amazing. You can make burgers, you can make awesome salads, you can make tacos out of it. You can even make pulled pork nachos, which is what I'm about to make. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you just thought it was another amazing use where beer makes other things great. My name is Steve Jaguar. Thanks for watching. This is the first food-related video that I've done. If you like it, give me a thumbs up, and I'll make more, because there's all sorts of beer-related recipes that we can all do together. Thanks.